Welcome to AI for the Average Joe, Season 3, Episode 2. And we thought we'd kind of go back to basics a little bit for this episode with a Hayley and Erica demonstration walkthrough of one of the latest large language models that we've been playing around with that we think you might be interested in. And I think, Hayley, it's key to say that maybe perhaps one of our challenges in L&D is that sometimes we're asked to take a lot of technical information or a lot of a volume of information and to summarize it in a really engaging way, right? And sometimes a video of a virtual classroom, the whole 2 hours of it doesn't quite cut it, does it?
Yeah, it's interesting that actually because we've always said, haven't we, that the recording is like the best resource you can have really following a live session, much more valuable than the slides or a load of notes because you can effectively go back and watch the whole thing again whenever you need it. But I actually had someone even earlier this week sort of say, "Oh, have you got a summary? Have you got something that you can send me with just the key points on that I can just refer back to?" And it did get me thinking about that additional resource for people because I'm aware that although it's great to have it, sometimes people just want to dip in and remind themselves on the high level key points rather than the whole thing.
Yeah, and with time being such a precious resource, you don't want to switch people off, I guess. And the whole podcast thing, I think took off in COVID. Kind of taking your dog for a walk or
Yeah.
being at home doing the cooking or whatever it is. So I think we've kind of moved more into kind of what's the audio podcast, quite quick, kind of short bite type thing that maybe will give us a little bit of a high level reminder of the key learning points or something like that. And we've been
Yeah.
playing around with Google's Notebook LM, which is what we're going to show you today, which is a really interesting take on taking a set of information that could be from a training session, it could be, I don't know, something more technical like a policy or a code of conduct, could be information off a website, general information, something you just want to do which is nice for somebody, and create like a mini podcast, really. They call it a deep dive on Google Notebook, but it's like a different way of providing those additional resources that your learners or your friends or people that you're trying to give information to in a more interesting way might be really value. So we're going to show you that today. So let's
Yeah.
get it on the screen.
Yeah, just whilst you're doing that, Erica, it's kind of I think people attend, don't they, a live session or something, and then they're looking for that thing to do after, and I can't help
Yeah.
but feel like workbooks and e-learning are all just slowly becoming quite outdated. So this feels like a nice dynamic way to be able to do something similar, doesn't it? Once you've got your head around the information, like with anything with AI, the information you put in will reflect on the information you get out. And I think if we can get that bit right, then there's a really good opportunity with this.
Yeah, definitely. And I do shudder when I have a client mention an interactive PDF or a workbook or something like that. 'Cause
I
it just feels
know.
so old school these days, doesn't it?
I
So,
don't think people really use it.
no,
You know, I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure there is some that find it helpful, but I don't know that it gives the value that we want it to be giving when we've, with the intention of using it. So
yeah,
yeah, no, this is
yeah.
great. This is exciting.
Yeah, so like all of these things, there is a free version and an upgrade version. This is the upgrade version. I upgraded for a month. I think you get the first 30 days free just to see what the differences are. And really, the only difference is you can create more deep dive files compared to the free version. That's the only difference I can see so far. I think for the free version, you get like two a day or something like that.
Hmm.
So you can see on the screen, we've been playing around with it a little bit. We've looked at kind of resources to support clients with their technical data and how do they get that across to their teams. You can see there that Hayley, I sent you a little deep dive a couple of weeks ago as an appreciation thing. I made the boyfriend feel good by doing a little deep dive about him. He loved that as well. And yeah, it was just having a look at how we could communicate things like quantum rise and what our products and services are, or how I could summarize a mental toughness virtual classroom that I delivered a
Hmm.
couple of years ago, and what would the key points be for that.
Hmm.
So in this episode, we're just going to show you again some of the art of the possible that you might want to consider. This functionality has just gone live in Google Gemini as well. So if you subscribe to Gemini as your large language model, you've also got this functionality in there as well. It's so easy to use. It relies on natural language processing like ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini itself. And the beauty with this stuff is, again, you don't need to be a coder, you don't need to know Python, you don't need to be a computer scientist or a podcast expert. Like anything, it's simplified. You just walk your way through this stuff. So I'll show you an example in a minute, but I'll just show you the interface here of how easy it is to create a very short podcast audio file, which you can use for a ton of different reasons. So
Hmm.
literally just clicking on the plus sign there, you can see it's asking you for links to videos, links to websites. You can copy and paste certain text. You can put documents in there, although it asks for Google documents. I don't think it takes Word documents, so it's just being worth
Oh, that's
aware of that.
interesting.
Yeah, because it's a Google product, right? So it's
Yeah,
deliberately
yeah,
built for Google environment.
yeah. But I guess it would just be a case of moving your document over to a Google
Yeah.
document so it works because not many people I guess will store their documents in Google Docs, will they? It'll be mainly in Word, I would imagine, or
Yeah, I
Excel,
think
things
most
like that.
people use Word, don't they? Microsoft
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, I think you can upload PDFs maybe as well, from what I remember.
Okay.
Yes, you can actually. Yeah. So you can
Hmm.
save a Word document as a PDF and upload that.
Yeah.
Or like what you were saying earlier, if there's specific points that you need to make sure definitely come out of the mini podcast or deep dive,
Hmm.
you can be clear on your prompt like you would do with ChatGPT. So you'd copy and paste that into the paste text section.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think you were saying like make sure you cover X, Y, Z.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess if you're uploading, a document, I don't know, 10,000 word document or something, then we got to, the more sort of specific you can be with what you want people to, or what you want
Yeah,
it to come out with, the better.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Okay.
exactly. And obviously links to websites, YouTube. I've been playing around with some YouTube videos. Some of them it likes, some of it doesn't like. So you just need to have a play around, and it's basically pulling a transcript from what's said in the videos. So
Hmm.
if it can identify a transcript, then you're fine. If it can't, you might need to use another resource.
Hmm.
Anyway, you do that, you select all your stuff. So you've got your topic about what you want your deep dive to be, and you've selected your resources that you want the deep dive to pull from. And the really nice thing here is, again, an interactive, quite clear panel you use. I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about. This is one that we did for Quantum Rise, just to put some context. So I wanted a short podcast type deep dive audio file talking about the AI services that we offer at Quantum Rise to our clients. So because of that, I decided to, on the left here, put a link to our website.
Hmm.
I decided I wanted the first episode of our podcast, AI for the Average Joe, and I took some text off the one of our websites. Oh, our LinkedIn page actually,
Hmm.
because what you can't do here, it doesn't like it if you add a LinkedIn page as a source, it blocks it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, there's sometimes you need to be a little bit creative in how you give it the information. I guess that's to do with IP or publishing
I
rights
expect it'll
or
be down to data, won't it?
data. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Okay.
so sometimes you just have to work around a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's just a case of understanding the art of the possible here. So, let me make sure I can access sound. Share computer sound. Here we go. And all you do once you've put all this information in is you have an option here that says create audio. And after a couple of minutes, it will come up with an audio file of two people literally talking to each other as if they've recorded a podcast based on the information that you've loaded up to this page here.
Hmm.
Um, and people haven't gone away and like scripted this and recorded this in like record time. This is the natural language processing. This is the audio large language model. This is the artificial intelligence technology that scraped all of that information that you've provided on this page, and it creates a little audio file. And I think this is really clever. So what I'm going to do now is just hit play on this audio file to give you a bit of a sense of what you can create here with this kind of information.
Hmm.
It seems like everywhere you turn these days, everybody's talking about AI,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
and can feel like you're suddenly expected to be fluent in this whole new tech language.
Right.
If you're anything like me, you've probably seen all the headlines, heard the buzzwords,
Mm.
and thought to yourself, okay, but what does this actually mean for me? Like, how can I use this?
Absolutely. I think that's a really common feeling.
Yeah.
There's so much focus on the really advanced, the futuristic side of AI
Right.
that it can be kind of hard to see how it can be useful right now in our everyday lives,
Total.
without needing to become a computer scientist or something.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We're going to take a really focused look
Mm.
at how AI is being used in the real world in practical ways.
Awesome.
And we've got this fantastic resource to help guide us.
Okay.
The first episode of the AI for the Average Joe series
Mm-hmm.
by Erica and Hayley from Summarise Talent Group.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. We're also going to be pulling in some information from their website
Who hasn't?
Okay, cool.
to give us a really well-rounded picture.
Sounds good.
So, our mission today is to cut through all the hype
Mm-hmm.
and show you, the listener, some specific examples
Yeah.
of how AI tools, especially ChatGPT in this case,
Right.
can be used by regular people.
You don't have to be a tech wizard.
No.
Okay, I'll pause it there because we could sit and listen to the whole thing. But as you can see, it's cleverly taken all of the data that I've made available on this interface and it's created a two-person podcast for about 15 minutes, 14 minutes, where they are talking about the information that's been supplied. And when I first did this, it blew my mind a little bit, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's, if you think about it, that's our whole website with all of the that's not just going to be AI content. What sits on there is all our other services and content, but it's been able to use the episode to hone in on the AI stuff.
Yeah,
And then your text has obviously bumped that as well. But that's why it's just really important to put what you want to get out of it into it, isn't it? And
yeah,
the more clear we are with that, but it's quite incredible really that then you can sit back and just listen to that played back, and
yeah.
they're not difficult voices to listen to either. I
No.
find it quite easy listening.
Yeah, if you a few people have mentioned the accent, obviously the American accent. I think this day and age, like you, I didn't even hear it was an American accent. I was just more interested in listening to what they were saying. But some of the clients that I've played this for are like, oh, I'm not sure about the Americanisms. And it's like, well, we live in a
Hmm.
global world, don't we? So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I find them quite relaxing. I could listen to that on a walk, or just like you would any other podcast, and there's a bit of personality in there.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
guess, how could this be used in the learning world? Because I know we've spoken a little bit about this already, haven't we? But it might be useful just to go into sort of some practical ways that this might really help to enhance learning.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said earlier, sometimes, watching the recording is suitable. Sometimes you don't have time to watch the recording or you want something different. So this is an example of where we've created a deep dive. Deep dive is this version of a mini podcast based on a virtual classroom session around mental toughness that I delivered a couple of years ago. And I've literally just put the link in from YouTube, as you can see here. So I've added the source. I found a link in YouTube where it's picked up the transcript. I tried a few different recordings, which it didn't like. So it's worth being aware of that. It might be that you need to take the written transcript, like Teams or Zoom gives you now, and put that into Paste and use that as well as the recording. But I was just blown away that the I guess the examples and the stories and the metaphors that I've given in this virtual classroom, not only have they picked up on the deep dive, but they pulled out the key learning points around the topic of mental toughness as well. Again, just blew my mind a little bit here.
Yeah, and that was done. That took what, 2 or 3 minutes, and I noticed when it was doing it, even then you were like, come on,
I'm so
trying to speed it
impatient.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, what it's doing in that time is amazing, really, isn't it? And what it
Yeah.
gives you.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll play it and then I'll skip through a couple of minutes as well, just so you can get a feel for the whole conversation. And then I'll show you what you can do with the file afterwards. But so literally all I've done is put the link in for the recording on YouTube that I've uploaded. I think it was a Zoom session for a couple of hours that I facilitated for the Associated Apprentices, I think. And this is the deep dive, the audio summary it's come up with.
Okay, so You know how we asked you to share stuff about going back to work after all the, craziness? Well, you sent us this transcript, and it's from YouTube session.
Right.
Yeah, it's called Mental Toughness, Heading Back to the Workplace. And it's by Erica Farmer.
Okay.
She's from this group called Quantum Rise Talent Group.
Talent
So
group.
we're going to like dig into it today,
Okay.
pull out the good stuff, those tips and things that you can actually like use
Yeah.
when you're heading back to work.
Yeah.
Because like whether you're going back full-time or part-time or like even if it's just changed at the office,
Oh, yeah, totally.
I think a lot of this is going to be really relatable,
I think you're so right. Like reading through that transcript, just seeing all.
which is basically like
Exactly.
thinking about thinking.
Uh,
But really it's about looking ahead
Yeah.
to when you go back and like thinking now about how you'll handle stuff.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
So it's not just about what happened before, it's about being ready for what might happen.
Yeah, planning ahead.
And she breaks mental toughness down into these like measurable things,
Okay, like what?
which I thought was really helpful because it makes it less like this vague idea.
Yeah. How do you actually measure mental toughness?
So the first one is control.
Control.
And there's like two parts to this.
I
First
love
is
that
like
summary of the
just
actual
that
model.
feeling of being in control. Even our health to some extent.
True.
And then people mentioned feeling forced to go back to the office
Oh, yeah.
and dwelling on the past and like family emergencies.
Those are all things that can cause so much stress.
But we can't really control them.
So what can we control?
That's the good part.
So there's the element
Okay.
of control, element of influence.
So she says we
model.
can control our schedule.
Yeah.
So she reminds us that most of the things we worry about never actually happen.
Really?
Yeah. She says like
Overthinking,
99% of the time, the bad
anxiety.
stuff we imagine doesn't come true.
That's good to remember.
Yeah, she even suggests saying that to yourself like a mantra.
Whenever you start to feel anxious.
Exactly.
So it's like a reality check.
Yeah, and then she talks about boosting your confidence by doing a SWOT analysis.
SWOT analysis. What's that?
Okay.
And then think
Yeah.
about one small thing you can do today based on that word.
That's a great challenge.
Yeah, just one little thing to help you feel.
Again, blows my mind slightly with that stuff.
I think I mean, when you sent me the video that you said you were playing around with, and it was really positive and it was lovely, all about Hayley Bird and how
Oh, yeah.
great she is, and it was nice to listen to, and it's a bit of fun, isn't it? You kind of hear it and you're like, oh, I like that. It feels good. But when you start to see it come to life in that kind of situation, you think, wow, what are the opportunities here? We record all of our sessions. So is there opportunity here to really provide that summary alongside the recordings that we provide to our clients, And I guess the only thing we might want to think about is again going back to data and what you're uploading and remembering
Yeah.
that not to upload confidential information, etc. So as long as we really are mindful of that again with this, which I know
Yeah.
we are anyway, but there's brilliant opportunity here for resource and ongoing learning
Yeah.
in the workplace. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I've played around with a couple of these, but I was working with SDN, one of our clients, around some AI training for them, and I know they won't mind me mentioning this. And we actually made a bit of a deep dive on their generic AI policy. So again, you need to make sure that everybody's got the right information. You've quality assured that this stuff does cover what you need it to do. So what we're not saying is just load everything up, let it
Yeah.
render, hit download, and off you go. You still need that
Yeah.
quality checking process. But with something like this, for example, that's perhaps more softer and not as technical, it does cover the key points you need it to cover. And to your point earlier, you can always add in additional notes to make sure the audio does pick that up.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about this is you just download it as an MP4 file into your own files, and then you've got another MP4 file, or it might probably be an MP3 file actually as an audio, which can sit on the learning management system, or a SharePoint file, or a website, or whatever, wherever you need to host it as well. So
Yeah.
it just feels like a bit of a no-brainer in terms of another resource where you can connect with people and give people what they need.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love it. Loads of opportunity for that.
So that's our first take on Google Notebook LLM. If you haven't had a chance to have a go at it, literally just Google that. It will come up. Like I said, there's a free option there. Go and have a look at Gemini as well if you haven't looked at that yet. have a play, see if it can add value to what you do with your people, with your attendees, with your delegates, whatever it might be. Again, it's a different take on using artificial intelligence in our sector and perhaps making our lives a little bit easier. We shall see you on the next episode of AI for the Average Joe. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and do get in touch if there's anything we can do to support you with your artificial intelligence strategy, training or adoption. Thanks very much. See you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.